Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Yesterday's I wanted to talk about the 380, my case for 380 for new shooters. And it goes for a number of reasons. Having introduced firearms to newer people, one thing I've seen as a common theme is a few of them, especially females and older people, really like things like the Smith & Wesson EZ 380 or EZ 9, that EZ series. Ruger's now broken into this. Springfield, I don't care about Springfield. I'll never mention Springfield in a good light. That's my own thing, and I've talked about it before. But SIG has made a P365 in a 380 now. And now you look at Glock. Glock has had a 380, and they've had it for years. Now, why? There's a couple of reasons why. I would say we need to look at the 380 again and realize that today's 380 is not the same as the 380 we knew about in the 90s and the 80s and the 70s even. And the reason why is you'll need only look to its parallel caliber. If you didn't know, a 380 was designed by John Moses Browning in 1908 for a Colt pistol he made. That was a smaller frame pistol back in the Gap. So, fast forward to now. What we're seeing are smaller frame pistols or lighter frame pistols in those models that are designed like the Security 380 that Ruger just released. They're designed specifically for the elderly who can't rack a slide as easily as I can, or women who can't rack a slide because it's harder because of the spring tension on a 9mm or a 45 or anything else. Now, I have my issues with handing someone a revolver and saying that's the most reliable thing on planet Earth. Kinda is, but then there's the problem of if this ever goes down, you're in a different world that's going to probably need a hell of a lot more advanced skills than you have. Where a semi-automatic, you can get around those jams, those failures, pretty quickly in the field if you have some training. And that's why I have always focused people more so towards a semi-automatic than a revolver. It's not that I have any problems with the revolver. I think they're magnificent, great pieces of machinery. My problem has always been if it fails, and I am a reliability nut. That's one of the reasons why I've always loved the AK because of the reputation. It wasn't until I got older in life and realized that the AR-15's reputation is bullcrap from back in the 70s and Vietnam era. That gun will run like a top. I've made my case why that's an American rifle. But the 380 needs another look. If you look at the 9mm, the 9mm is 9 by 18 millimeters. The 380 is 9 by 17 millimeters. So you're losing a little case capacity. That means that it's not going to be as hot of a load. And in these new style pistols that are designed specifically for the 380, that gives less recoil or felt recoil to the shooter. Again, this introduces new shooters or shooters that aren't like me running cases of ammunition when they go out to shoot, or half a case, or 200 rounds or 300 rounds. Those are a light day of shooting for me. That's why I am not doing it as often now that I'm a business owner and trying to save money or save capital for my business until I know where I land in a year or two. Okay. But let's bring the 9mm back up. The 9mm in the 90s was being deprecated by the FBI and law enforcement. All of them were ditching the caliber for the 40 because of the shooting that happened. The Hollywood shootout is what they call it. Now, why? It didn't have the penetration that they were looking for with that technology then. Fast forward to today. Those same entities that had dumped the 9mm just 10 years ago are now on board and buying 9mm pistols. Why? And the question had to be thought of if you think about it. What changed? A lot has changed. We've gotten better propellants since 1908, since the 80s, since the 90s, since the early 2000s. We've gotten better bullet technology as far as expansion, as far as design. Specifically in the 380, if you look at something like the Lehigh defense rounds, their extreme defense, or I think is what they call it, or extreme penetrator, they have both lines for the 380. And you check out, again, I like mentioning the gun tubers because it lets you know I'm just like you. I watch all the other dudes too. Tim at Military Arms Channel, he did a whole ballistic series on the 380 round. And the one he found that was just rocked it and made it even more viable for me was a round that uses a Lehigh defense bullet, but it's an Underwood loading. And the Underwood loading is just a little hotter. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the round for the new shooter, but it damn well could be, because they have the ability to train with the lighter version, which should give them just about as much performance, but less recoil with the Lehigh round. Or they can go with the Underwood round and get a little more pop. And the performance differential, while it is enough to warrant you to carry the Underwood, the Lehigh is just as effective for what it does. It hits the FBI minimums of 12 inches. In this case, I think it was like 14. It's creating a wound channel or initial wound cavity that is on par, believe it or not, with a 9mm in a 380. You have a smaller footprint, so look at the new LCP Max. I own one. You have a small pocket-style pistol that holds 11 rounds, or 13, I think, or 12, with the Extendo magazine that they have, the little base plates that go on them. That takes the 380 into the realm of a defensive pistol. Is it optimal? No. I would take a 9mm every day of the week when you start to have to defend yourself with it. However, if you're having to carry concealed, really concealed, because you are in a different world and you cannot tell the world you have this stuff, you may even be doing this illegally. Okay? Now, I'm not telling you not to do this or break the law, but there are places where you go to a movie theater. In some places, they have the little sign that says, you can't carry in here. No weapons allowed. That is the right of any private landowner or any private business to say, no, you can't have them there. But as we've seen the world evolve, if you ignore that sign, and I'm not telling you to do that, you do you, freemen don't ask permission. But it allows you to get past that without anybody seeing the bulge of what you have. So there's that. But adding the fact that the newer pistol designs that are coming out do not have the recoil, and I can say that for a fact because I've got to shoot the EZ380 with the backstrap safety that Smith & Wesson has made. There is some secret sauce here. And it makes a lot of sense for an elderly person who has lost grip strength as they've gotten older, who's living alone, who needs to defend themselves because they are prey to the bad guys. This is not a bad thing. What about the wife or girlfriend who's left at home because the boyfriend, and I know this is sexist, but they're driving because they're working as a truck driver and they're not home. You know, it's better than leaving a shotgun. It might make them feel more comfortable because it's a gun you can train them very easily to manipulate versus like an AR-15. And I say this, they would, if you spend enough time with the AR-15, they will feel fine with that. I can talk to you about that because I've had past girlfriends that of the two, a rifle made them feel a hell of a lot more comfortable because after they shot it and trained with it, they were better shots with it and more capable with it. But say you have a girlfriend or a wife who's a nurse and their hospital's in a shadier part of town and they don't want to have something that prints or that is so massive that they have it in their purse and they have to dig for it with their holster and everything else. Yes, they make concealed carry purses. And yes, that's another conversation to be more competent and trained. But a gun in the hand is better than one in the safe any day of the week. And with the way society is going, I'll take a 380 in my pocket or in my hand versus a 9mm I left at home in the safe because it was too big for my daily life or how I dressed that day. And that is why I believe the 380 is still very viable. And if you look at the world history of the 380, in places, I believe Mexico is this way, you can't, in places in South America, you cannot own a military caliber. Okay, so a 380 is as good as it gets for them. So what does that mean? That gives them the capability of carrying a defensive caliber. That's why Glock forever had the 380 on its books, but we couldn't get it in the United States because there are parts in the world that the 380 was it for self-defense. That's all you could do. That or the 32 ACP. What is extremely hilarious is that the way the rules in those countries were written is that you couldn't use a military caliber. But both the 380 and the 32 ACP, technically speaking, were military calibers way back in the gap. I think that the 380 still has some meat on its bones, still better than a 22, and while it is not the best for what I would conceal carry rounds, it's the minimum on my scale, but it's still better than not having a defensive option on you. Still better than a stick in the eye, as Honest Outlaw likes to say. I think the 380 has a lot of interesting things going for it, especially with the new bullets and the new loading designs. Like, share, subscribe, be great.